And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Employee Relations and Public Safety Committee meeting. I'm Commissioner Ted Terry, joined by Commissioners Jeff Rader and Steve Bradshaw on the committee. And Commissioner Davis Johnson is joining us, and I believe Commissioner Cochran Johnson will be joining as well. We have a pretty light agenda, and I know we've got a lot on PWI, so we'll make sure that we get done on time, if not a little sooner today. So let's go ahead, and everyone has the agenda before them. We've got our first, just the meeting minutes from May 17th. So if there's any comments or questions on that, if not, we'll go ahead and take a motion for those meeting minutes.
It's good. I make a motion to approve.
And I will have to abstain because I wasn't present.
Yes, that's right. Okay, I'll second. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, raise your hand. Say aye. Chair votes aye, one abstention. Okay, motion carries. All right, so we've got 3 agenda items here and just a little section for a status update on Brandon Hill. So let's go in order here. We'll first go back to the previously heard items. That's item 1299, which is the resolution authored by Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson on the mandatory use of video surveillance systems at convenience stores and other related areas. And I believe we have an update from the commissioner on where the law department is in their review. Commissioner?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if Attorney Terry Phillips is on the call, but we did speak earlier. And we would ask that we defer. And at this time, I do see Attorney Phillips by way of our chief counsel, Ms. Ernst, and I see he's changed his name. So I'll allow you to speak so that everyone understands where we are in the process with the legislation before it comes back to the full body for additional conversation.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner. May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please go ahead, Terry.
We are in the process of consolidating feedback from various departments. We've worked closely with Chief Ramos, and we've also incorporated some changes from this committee's previous discussions. You may recall a few items were added to the list of crimes in the section that would be used there. But as we work through the feedback with the departments, we want to make sure we're all on the same page. And then we'll make our recommendation to Commissioner Cochran Johnson so that she can present it back to this committee. We're finalizing that now and hope to get it to her very shortly.
Okay, very good. And I believe Commissioner Cochran Johnson, I think every commissioner's basically weighed in at this point, right? So all the feedback's been given, and now it's just the law department just sort of incorporating those feedback points.
And let me say that when it's sent, if I might, Mr. Chair, if there's any further discussion, we welcome it. I want, everyone to be completely comfortable with the legislation. I would just ask that you read through it. All previous comments were received. We have done our best to work with all departments to ensure that it is exactly what's needed, because it is needed. This is good legislation for us, and it will help us in, the fight against crime and help us create safe environments. And literally, as it relates to the video surveillance, it's nothing new. It's what should be done at these types of commercial establishments to ensure the safety of individuals. And in the event that there is an incident, because we are now using best practices in terms of the megapixels for cameras, it gives us good footage to work with, regulates, of course, again, the storage, also as well as lighting packages to ensure 75-foot periphery around the building is visible, mandates where cameras should be placed, points of entry, point of sale, point of exit, as well as at all gas pumps. And also makes a mandatory requirement that anytime there is an incident and footage is requested, that it is rendered to the requesting authority within a specified period of time. So hopefully everyone will agree that It is decent, in order, useful, and will assist us, and hopefully we'll be able to move it forward. But, thank you to the law department for the hard work on it to see that we reach this point and beyond. And I'll look forward to sending it back, and Commissioner Terry at that time having any further discussions.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I've definitely given my feedback, so I'm good to go. Any Commissioner Rader, go ahead.
Yes, just to ensure that that we understand the way that these work together, Mr. Phillips, do you have a list of, concerns that you're trying to address with amendments?
Well, the only thing that we are doing at this point, Commissioner Rader, is going through the feedback from various departments, planning, police, and the like, to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to review the changes we made from the last committee discussion. And we're going through that feedback now to make sure that we've covered all bases and everyone is comfortable with the legislation as it's drafted, taking their questions and comments, making sure they've been answered to their satisfaction, and then we'll present it back to Commissioner Cochran-Johnson.
Okay, but for instance, there were some comments that were made in committee meetings, such as the need for compatibility between these video surveillance specifications and those contained elsewhere in the code for some level of uniformity there. And then the whole discussion of how it was that a business, as a result of location or a change in business, could petition for removal from the
I believe you're referring to the high-risk business.
the high-risk business.
High
That's right.
risk. Mhm.
So I was just wondering if you had so those were two concerns that I don't know if departments had raised, but I had raised them. And so I think that there are other issues that commissioners raised, and I was wondering if you had a list of those or if you were strictly working from the staff review level.
Well, no, we went through all of the comments that we received in committee, Commissioner, and I think we've addressed all of those comments. And when this committee reviews it again, I trust you'll have an opportunity.
So I was wondering if you had a list of those comments so that we could.
I can just rattle. I recall what they were.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
We did go over removal from high-risk business.
Mhm.
We also took a look at lighting and how that would be impacted.
Oh, yeah,
One
that's
of the things that came up in the discussion was the fact that as drafted currently, the legislation requires that the cameras are able to film in the absence of light. So that, for example, on the interior of the store, as Commissioner Cochran-Johnson said, where you're filming above cash registers and the like, those would work even when lights were off. So that removed, hopefully, the concerns about a lighting issue.
Well, the concern was, I guess, that it seemed as though there was a mandate for sufficient lighting, at least exterior, and that we often or sometimes had conditions of zoning or other concerns revolving around light spillover into surrounding
That's right.
non-commercial areas. And so that's been addressed?
Yes.
Okay, great.
We think that's been addressed properly. Another issue was adding a few crimes to the list of crimes. We've added all of those that were mentioned.
Okay.
And then a final piece, I believe, was considering whether or not a mechanism that would allow automatic viewing of video and hearing audio live time.
Real
would be
time.
Available, real time, correct. And there was great deal of discussion with the police chief and review of all of that, and we've addressed that as well. So all of that will be presented back to Commissioner Cochran-Johnson for her review and presentation to this committee. But those were the dominant issues, Commissioner Rader.
Okay, and then you are, I guess, working with staff to ensure compatibility of these technical standards with other areas of the code, right?
Yes, we took a look at, for example, hotel motel and how that would work. So I think we've covered all of the issues, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Terry. Thank you, Commissioner Cochran Johnson, for pushing this forward. One quick question, when will we see the full document before we're asked to vote on it?
Our hope is to get a copy to Commissioner Cochran Johnson this week. And I'm sure once she's had a chance to review it, she will share it with the committee or invite us to publish it to everyone. I want to make sure we've written it in a fashion that's pleasing to her, but we hope to get it to everyone by next week.
Thank you.
And is it, will there be, was it going to be like in the form of like, you know, like a, what do you call it, track comments or a red line? Sort
We
of
can
like
do
we
that.
see where you
We
just
can
the changes.
Do that.
Commissioner Terry, what we typically would do is just give you both a track changes version for easy review of changes and a clean copy. For some of us, it's easier to read a clean copy. We can provide both copies to you.
Okay. Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Yeah, and I may have missed this, Terry, because I was doing something else. But if not Terry, yeah, Terry, that's right. Two Terrys, we got two Terrys. Are these areas designated as high risk areas?
No.
May I, Commissioner Cochran Johnson?
No, there is no, I seem to have been frozen in time. So hopefully you all hear me, but there is no such thing as a high risk area. There's no high risk area in DeKalb. What we identified through the legislation is high risk businesses. And those are businesses where, as we define in law, certain occurrences have taken place, including murder, battery, assault, aggravated sodomy, rape, and or 3 incidents of crime or violence reported within a 30-day period. So we do not have high risk areas. A business becomes high risk based upon the activity that takes place on its premise.
If I may add, Commissioner Davis Johnson, one of the things that the committee discussed is maybe using a different term. In high risk. So I'm mindful that there was some concern about connotations just from that term. But the idea was in the original legislation, and it's still included, that there could be conditions that warranted having the regulation imposed so that we could combat crime that had already occurred and avoid repeating it. And that's the essence of what Commissioner Cochran Johnson had proposed. But the term itself is what was discussed in the last committee meeting, whether or not another term could be used. There was just a little concern expressed, as I recall. That's what I had in my notes, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, very good. So should we defer this for 2 weeks then? Does that work? Or defer, or just defer?
I would ask that we defer it until the next meeting. And I would also yield to the desire of the legal department, Mr. Phillips, if you believe otherwise. But I just want everyone to have the opportunity to read it and digest it. Once the revised draft and red line is given to me, I will read it and send it out to all fellow commissioners within 24 hours.
I think 2 weeks is fine, Commissioner Terry.
Okay, Commissioner Rader.
Let's see. So if we have 2 weeks, then this committee will be able to review the final version and make a recommendation. Is that correct?
Yeah, if we can get it next week, I think that'd be plenty of time for us to review it.
Yeah, so at our next meeting, it would be deferred 2 weeks, and then there would be an intervening committee meeting, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said there would still be another PEX committee before we ended up voting on the final version. Is that correct?
A PEX committee or an ERPS committee?
ERPS committee, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, like we'll just defer it now for 2 weeks. We'll take it up in 2 weeks.
Yep. Okay.
Make a recommendation to the BOC.
Great.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, with that in mind, I'll open the floor for a motion then.
Move to defer 2 weeks for recommendation and to return to the committee.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Chair votes aye, motion carries. All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Cochran Johnson. And Attorney Phillips, thank you so much for working on this, and we'll look forward to receiving the updated draft next week. Okay, very good. All right, so next item here is 1656 to amend the Code of DeKalb County, Georgia as revised 1988, Chapter 20, Article 8, to recognize General Election Day as a paid county holiday. And I'm gonna try to listen to my county attorney advice here and pull out our Robert's Rules of Order here, and I'm going to ask if Commissioner Bradshaw can take the gavel for this agenda item.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so
who's with regard to 1656? Is anyone here from the administration? Yeah, I know it's your item, Ted.
Yep.
Do you want to go ahead and speak on it now then before we hear from staff?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll just speak real briefly just to kind of recap it since we
All right.
do that. And then I think Zach and Director Ransom, I think, are here as well. Okay, very good. So this is a resolution, in essence, to create a paid holiday for county employees to in essence, vote on election day or during the early voting period. We currently have 12 paid holidays under our Section 20164. The most recent, of course, is Juneteenth, which we'll be celebrating in just a week and a half or so. Thank you, Commissioner Davis Johnson. Over the last several years, including even at the federal level, there have been moves to really encourage Election Day as a holiday, sort of writ large, but short of a federal or state holiday, all we control really is our own, employee base. And so we've got 6,000 plus employees. Certainly not all of them can take Election Day off because they have vital services they perform. But the general idea here is we want to increase our participation of our employees in their democracy, whether it's to have plenty of time to vote, as well as just participate in their democracy. And that can manifest itself in many different ways, whether it's working as an election worker on Election Day. That's in a very important role that we have trouble sometimes filling those roles, volunteering, or just basically being involved in their democracy. We do know that in Georgia and other states there are laws that I think in many independent sort of opinions have deemed them as in essence voter restrictions, and whether that's sort of changing the way the absentee voting system works. I think we saw in not only the municipal election, but also even in this recent primary that vote by mail is just dramatically dropped. And there are, I think, expert accounts and anecdotal evidence to suggest that the new SB 202 voting laws, when it comes to absentee vote by mail, have made it much more difficult to request a mail-in ballot. And so this really means that our early voting and Election Day voting situations become even much more important because we expect more people to choose those two options. And then I think maybe the kind of the other sort of opportunity with DeKalb County being a leader in this regard is convincing and encouraging other jurisdictions to also adopt an Election Day as a holiday system. In Clarkston, a few years back, we did a half-day Election Day holiday. That was something that, based on our staff, employee feedback at the time, a half-day was sort of what folks were, willing to take. So we've got some options there. And then, I think writ large, I think, generally speaking, it's good to encourage the whole community of DeKalb, whether they're a private employer, a public employer, to consider providing this opportunity for a paid holiday to participate in their democracy. So with that, I'll yield back my time, and if there's any comments or thoughts from the administration, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Terry. Mr. Williams, do you have any thoughts from the administration's perspective?
Right. So ultimately, of course, this is going to be a policy decision for the board to make. It is my understanding that we currently provide some time off. I'm not sure, what it is officially, if it's 2 hours or 4 hours. But, the concept, as Commissioner Terry articulated, to the extent we can promote access to voting, I would imagine that, the process would be maybe during the time period, because to the commissioner's point, some people may have to early vote or so forth, because everyone cannot take off election day. But there may be ways to work out that people are given a grace day or a day off, or, if they want to do a day. I don't know if it requires 8 hours, but what I would like is the opportunity to just kind of talk it through and cost it out, to see how it would work, because, theoretically, those persons who would have to work on that day would then maybe be eligible for overtime or some sort of compensation for working during a holiday. But those are things that we can work through. So if you can give us a couple of weeks just to discuss it and come back with some specific thoughts, we can do that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Any questions or comments from other committee members? Commissioner Rader?
I'm also interested in seeing, the cost and the mechanics of this. As mentioned, we do have 12 holidays now. There are holidays that we have that seem to be obsolete, such as Columbus Day. But nevertheless, if we, I'd like to know whether or not our current policy, exactly what that is in terms of time off for voting, and the degree to which folks are not able to exercise their franchise as the result of the current policy. I do think that, we are unique insofar as when it comes to public safety or obviously the administration of elections. We really are certainly on that day. Maybe a little bit less so in areas such as public works and whatnot, but I'd like to see what we could do to efficiently support the franchise while still maintaining the interests of our taxpayer stakeholders in, the efficient and cost-effective delivery of services.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Rader. Commissioner Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I agree with just doing the cost analysis. Now, I think that I wanted to ask Mr. Williams or maybe Director Ransom, because I see on the agenda item, which I assume is taken right from the code section, and I don't think we do celebrate or recognize Columbus Day anymore. Or so I think that maybe that got removed, or maybe Juneteenth replaced it. I'm not sure.
Nope.
But I don't see Columbus Day on here. I see kind of like the usual ones. And I guess I would maybe just ask Mr. Williams, I think when we're sort of looking at the cost analysis, I imagine it's sort of a similar kind of impact as Juneteenth, right? Just a
Absolutely.
Holiday that's not sort of a typical holiday.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
That's becoming, I think more important in sort of recognition. I will say, I don't know if there really is, sort of the need to have any additional holidays added. I feel like Juneteenth and Election Day kind of are like the ones that I think I've heard the most about from constituents over the years. I don't think anyone else is, thinks there's any other holidays we should celebrate. Of course, the downfall of the Roman Empire, was led by having too many holidays. I don't know if y'all knew that, but 3/4 of the year was a holiday celebration in the Roman Empire. So, at some point you can have too many holidays. But I guess Mr. Williams, in terms of the just, the impact of obviously like when we move to Juneteenth as a holiday, I imagine there's similar metrics are in play there.
Sure. And Commissioner Terry, if I may, should our research include giving the equivalent of 8 hours off during the voting time period for persons to vote, as opposed to simply on that election day. I'm thinking in terms of from a managerial perspective, managing labor, it would be a lot easier to manage people being away at some point during that early voting through the voting day, as opposed to just on that day.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was something, and this is of course, a draft resolution, so I expect there to be some changes, but we did one of the whereases, we sort of recognize that some places have a public holiday or a half-day holiday. So I think for us as the policymaking board, do we want to do a half-day or full day? And then, I guess, is that 4 hours? Is it 8 hours? And then, certainly, is it, during the early vote or is it on election day? I guess maybe there's some employees that might work on the weekend potentially, but I imagine we're talking about kind of work week. But I think all that makes sense to look at.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Williams, how much time is going to be sufficient for you to conduct this research and cost analysis?
Can we bring it back in 30 days?
Commissioner Terry, is that satisfactory to you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Before I proceed, are there any other comments from other commissioners? Seeing none, I'll hear a motion to that effect.
I will move to defer item 1656 for 30 days pending administration and HR review and cost analysis.
Second.
Properly seconded. Any other comment? Seeing none, we'll take action. Words and hands. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I yield back to the chair.
Okay, the next one's mine also.
Okay, then I won't yield back to the chair. We'll carry on. Next item is item 3338 to amend Chapter 20, Article 10 concerning domestic partnerships. Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this is something we introduced last year. We have been deferring it just as I think there's been an effort to have further discussion about this particular aspect of our benefits structure. I have had conversations with HR as well as COO Williams about the prospects of doing a more comprehensive survey and kind of benefits review sort of writ large across the system. And in my mind, domestic partnerships is one aspect of that. And so the goal of this resolution is quite frankly to just make DeKalb County a more attractive place to work. And I think as we're seeing the Pew Research Center put out an analysis last year that basically indicated that almost half of all millennials, or now I guess Gen Z as well, aren't getting married and are increasingly having domestic partnership sort of arrangements. And I know that's kind of like for some folks who are more old fashioned and got to get married and all that kind of stuff. Totally understand, and like no slight on anyone who wants to get married, but we do recognize that in the demographics of the younger workforce suggests that more and more of our younger employees or potential employees might be in this domestic partnership situation, and so I think it merits further study. And so I'm happy to defer this, continue to defer this. If we can, I guess, as an ERPS committee, can get some, more clarity and kind of concrete steps from the administration and HR on how we can look at kind of a total benefits review and analysis. And this would just be one, I think, small piece of a larger discussion.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Committee members, I guess I'm the other committee member. Commissioner Rader, do you have any comments before I open it up to other commissioners?
Yes, I mean, I am generally supportive of this in light of trying to, again, offer comparable benefits to an increasing number of employers. We also offer domestic partnership benefits to same-sex couples. that are likewise eligible for, consummated marriages. So I do think that we ought to have some level of parity there. And in light of the job market right now, it's probably practical only to add to the options for benefits rather than to detract from them.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rader. Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson.
Thank you. So first I want to say I'm not old fashioned, but I would say as a commission and steward of taxpayers' money, I would just like to go back to at the time when we had, and we still have, but at the time when domestic partnerships was initiated, it existed at a time when same-sex couples could not marry. Now it has become the law of the land for same-sex couples to have the right to marry. I believe that the county should not pay for domestic partners who has the option to pay. The county would be, in my opinion, paying for lifestyle choices, and it would be costing us money. Right now, we have, and I think that we can attract, as we have been, effective and productive employees, regardless of whether we offer same-sex or domestic partnership benefits. Right now, we have 41 employees of domestic partners. We are paying $171,447.87. That is the cost right now to the county. So you open it up. What is the time frame? Can I move in with somebody tomorrow and say I'm a domestic partner and then have the county pay for that? Do I have to have a week to move in? We do not have Medicaid expansion here, so it's attractive for people to say, this is my domestic partner. If you have a friend that is in dire need of medical assistance, it's easy to say, this is my domestic partner. We don't have and will not have a police force to look into relationships. I will say, it's just I will say when we had common law marriages, every couple that separated filed a suit in court as a common law partner, which overloaded the courts, which resulted in the repeal of common law marriages in Georgia. And so it was determined if you are going to be married, you go through the legal process of getting married. And so that's what I'm saying, that if you make a choice not to, that's your choice. But don't put that burden up on the county, because we cannot police relationships and we should not pay for your personal choices. And that's, that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Davis Johnson. Commissioner Terry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to agree with my colleague, Commissioner Davis Johnson. I do not think that we should set up a system where just oh, I need to get my treatment paid for, so I'm your domestic partner. Like, absolutely. I believe the current, and I don't know if Director Ransom or CO Williams can answer this directly, but I thought that there was I know there's like something you got to sign. There's some sort of paperwork and review process. And I thought that it was like a year or something. So what is the current standard right now for same-sex domestic partnerships? I know there's a process that has to go through, so you can't just be willy-nilly adding domestic partners, left and right.
Director Ransom, do you know? I don't know that answer, Commissioner. Director Ransom, do you know?
Well, now I'm going to yield to Larry Jacobs or Diane McNabb for the specific details, as they have responsibility for the insurance coverage.
Commissioner, this is Diane. I think it's a year, but I will double check to make sure.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that current system totally makes sense. I think the current 41 employees who are same-sex domestic partners, had to wait a year. They had to sign up. I imagine there's some sort of kind of annual check-in or something to make sure people are still domestic partners. And, I don't see it as like a personal, I guess that you're right. It's ultimately a personal lifestyle choice. But I strongly believe that that we have to just adapt our policies to fit the changing demographics. And maybe we can create an incentive. I hate to say it, like an incentive to get married. I don't know if there could be one if folks want to do that. I don't know if that's a good thing either, but I'm saying it's at the same time, I don't want to penalize someone for not choosing to get married, but they still might be in a committed relationship, right? We're not policing that. It's more just, acknowledgement that, some folks choose not to get married. And it's just a trend that we're seeing. And I'm very cognizant of a lot of the statistics on government workers in general tends to be an aging workforce. And so just in the concept of trying to bring new, younger workers into an organization like DeKalb County or any organization, just from a kind of a cold and calculated, how do we get more young people to apply to work for DeKalb County? This is just one of many things, right? I brought up the drug testing as one. I think there's lots of different things. There was an article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle today that said that employers need to offer dental and vision, it's a must-have. It's not an optional thing. And I know we do that for our employees, but there's a lot of employers out there that don't provide the kind of benefits that we do. But now they are providing more benefits because the experts in the HR fields are saying that you gotta offer more of that lifestyle options. And this is more about time off, holidays, work from home. There's a whole bevy of things that can go into answering the question, how do we attract a younger and more diverse workforce? So again, I want to defer it just because, I want to get consensus on it, but I think it makes sense to just have this piece in the larger conversation of kind of a true sort of benefits analysis. And I don't know, Mr. Williams, if you and Mr. Jacobs and others, what y'all's thoughts are on, how we can move forward with, kind of that analysis. I think there's discussion about, can we do a survey that, even ask the question about some of these things and sort of develop out where our current employee base is, and is there an opportunity to, in essence, survey kind of the market, if you will, on what employees are saying is their top kind of preference for benefits and the like.
So I don't know if Mr. Jacobs is on, Commissioner Terry, but this is something we've talked a bit about internally. And I think we've had a couple of conversations in ERPS, wherein we need to find things beyond salary or pay, just the basic compensation that will attract employees. Whether this is one or not, I don't necessarily have an opinion. But we can certainly survey the market to see what are the creative things that are being done with respect to benefits and coverage and stuff, and just see what's out there. We can report back on that if that's the nature of your question.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I mean, I think certainly knowing what other, I guess, large competitive
Well, right.
similar sized governments do and similar sized organizations. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I think so. In my opinion, it's kind of an internal survey of our current employee base, right? Because I think we want to make sure that we're taking care of our home base first. But certainly, yeah, what is the market? Where are we seeing competition in the market, and do we need to respond to be competitive?
Right. And so that's what I would envision, much like we are constantly surveying the major counties and some of the municipalities where we often are in competition for what is, quite frankly, a dwindling workforce. We can assess how our current benefits package or packages stack up to theirs, and be able to just chart out. And one of the questions we would have on there is whether or not they offer benefits much like what's being described here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. I see Commissioner Davis Johnson's hand again. Go ahead, please.
And yeah, and so I would just like to know what our potential exposure would be for this. And also whether or not, and I guess this would go back to HR, are we having difficulty recruiting skilled and skilled prospective employees that we need in DeKalb County, or younger skilled workforce in DeKalb County? So those are some of the questions that I would have, because I know as we add people onto our insurance, we're paying for that. And so I would like to know we have 41 now, and I've already decided the cost on that. So I would like to know what our potential exposure would be. And how
That last part broke up there.
Yeah, we were breaking up right at the end there, Commissioner Davis Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to repeat what you said?
I would just like to see the potential exposure for us, and also that second part I just said, the workforce.
It's happening.
Are we having difficulty recruiting?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, it happened again, right?
Are we having difficulty recruiting? Okay.
Yeah, so
Wade, did you get the gist of that?
Okay.
I did, and Commissioner Davis Johnson will provide to the best of our ability. Yes, there are certainly challenges in recruiting certain job classes that are very, very, very competitive right now. And so, whether it's, I'm not even going to list them all, but yes, there are areas that are much more challenging than others in recruiting. As it relates to what our level of exposure would be, let's see how well we can guesstimate, because the question really is, of our workforce, what percentage would be living in circumstances or interested in, I guess, living in circumstances that would make them eligible for this. And that's just very difficult to know. But I'm sure we can, we can just extrapolate. When you take a population of, 6,500 employees, we know how many are currently insured. married. So that pool would probably come out, and then we would work with the single married or the single insured, and then make some extrapolations. That'd be the best we could do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. COO.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Terry?
Yeah, and just a final thought here, because I know that, I mean, there's certainly different job kind of classifications here and there. And, just maybe 2 points kind of to the 2 job classifications that I see that probably are maybe the most dire need of a kind of an enhanced benefits package is our frontline workers, particularly our police, and then, sanitation, watershed, roads and drainage. I think that one of the, just in regards to some of the kind of the lowest paid positions in our county, if we're not prepared to, in essence, increase their minimum wages, then I think the other way that we, get, folks to apply for these jobs is through the benefits. And certainly I think, if they're married, they'll take advantage of that. If not, then there might be an opportunity to recruit there. As far as the police officers, I think the police officer sort of question, I think that to me seems to be sort of the most immediate, almost the more urgent kind of benefits review. And I know we've done the salary survey last year. I would guess that the police officer, kind of benefit interest level might be unique or different, might be similar, I don't know. But to me, that is the most glaring worker staffing shortage, especially since we know that, in some situations at certain times, depending on what's going on in the county, we could be understaffed when responding to emergencies. And I know we're working overtime to address those, but when you look at 100+ officer positions funded but not filled, I think that's something that we all should put our heads together. The administration, Public Safety Department, Chief Ramos, the ERPS Committee, just to ask that question of what can we be doing in addition to the obviously the enhanced pay that and some of the pension sort of tweaks that we voted on earlier this year. But what else can we do? And so I guess maybe the question for Mr. Williams, is that something that can we just work with the ERPS committee and you and Mr. Jacobs on how we sort of move that, at least that survey process forward?
I think so, Commissioner. We can survey, but I'm going to keep using the word our competition. And to your point, though, we are constantly having discussions with the CEO, the public safety director, police chief, and others for these critical positions. And we do recognize that the labor pool continues to shrink. So we do have to do things above and beyond simply adding to the salary line. So we are becoming more and more creative. We will continue to become more and more creative as we explore how can we retain and recruit employees.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A quick question for Mr. Williams. How many employees does the county currently have, and about how many employees currently fall in the domestic partnership category?
So I believe Commissioner Davis Johnson quoted earlier how many are currently in the domestic partnership benefits, have signed up in that way. And I believe the number that Commissioner Davis Johnson quoted was 41.
Okay.
I don't have information other than that, so I'm going to go with the 41. And we have approximately, I want to say, 6,500 employees, Commissioner, but we can,
okay,
we can validate up to the pay period if necessary.
That's fine. I just wanted to get a general idea of what size population do we have altogether, and then how many of these other this other category we have as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, other comments? All right, before we take action, I'll make a quick comment. First of all, I get Commissioner Terry's point about the macro sense, trying to make DeKalb County more attractive as an employer. I totally get that. On the other hand, marriage is, and I'm speaking, I'll claim the label a little old fashioned. I don't mind claiming that. Marriage is not only a holy institution, it's a legal institution. When you get married, you and your spouse have a contract. Just as on the flip side, when your marriage ends, that's a legal process. So my question would be, in the macro sense, not necessarily for an answer, but what happens when a domestic partnership ends? How is that marked? There's not a divorce. You don't go through a legal process to state that it's over. So, technically somebody could move out of your house and still be your domestic partner in perpetuity. So, that's just a worst case scenario, but I'm just thinking out loud. When your marriage ends, you get a divorce. That's a legal document. It's on file at the courthouse. Everybody knows your marriage is over. In a domestic partnership, who knows when that's over? So, and I just ask that we consider that as we think through this process. So, all right, Commissioner Terry, with that, you have a thought in mind as to how much further you want to defer this for this iteration?
Yeah, I think this definitely deserves a lot more daylight. So if the committee's good, I'll motion for 3-month deferral or 90-day deferral, I guess.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely want to work through the issues you just brought up, as well as with Director Jacobs as well. So I will motion to defer this item 3338 for 90 days.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Rader. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll take action. Hands and voices. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. I think that was it for previously heard items. So I yield back to the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradshaw. All right, so let's just take the remaining time here. We'll definitely end before PWI, because we have a lot going on there. So let's turn our attention to the status update. And so I appreciate, first off, COO Williams and Chief Fulham and Director Mitchell and the whole sort of Community Services and Human Services Department and team for coming out to Brandon Hills several weeks ago for a food distribution. We were able to engage with many of the residents on site while they were receiving their care packages and their food supply. It really sparked, I think, some good conversation. I was able to go into some buildings that I hadn't gone into before and met some residents that I didn't know existed, and learned a little bit more about their stories. And so what I wanted to do today was just give a brief update, because what followed that food distribution, were residents saying, you're not going to just drop off food and then leave us alone for 6 months. they're like, you're going to come back, right? So I made a promise to, them and in the larger community that we would keep Brandon Hill in our mind and on the front burner. Because a lot of the issues that are happening there right now are kind of dire and in some cases an emergency situation. The long-term solutions are going to, it's going to be a long-term mix of lots of different solutions. And so what I wanted to do today is have a little feedback update from a meeting that we called last Saturday on site at Brandon Hills with the residents. I believe we had almost 40, mostly residents, some owners, attend for about 2.5 hours to really share just in general their feedback, things that they are seeing, as well as things that they want help with. And I believe we have Miss Erica Williams here, who I'm really thankful for. If she's on, she can go and turn her video on if you can find her, Ms. Rotowski. But Erica, I think everyone has met Erica before. I think she used to work here. But Erica, I think on her own volition and own volunteer time, showed up, many times over the last several months as we were trying to address and have a
Yes.
community response to the recent triple homicide, as well as the we can still hear you, Jeff, as well as the recent fires and other incidences that have been really plaguing Brandon Hills for the last several months and years now. And so, Erica, would you mind just running through what the community said on Saturday? We took lots of notes and we had some action steps. And so I'm going to turn it over to you for just a review of what our little burgeoning community task force and steering committee, as we're calling it, came up with on Saturday, and some ideas for discussion in next steps.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Terry, and good afternoon, commissioners and staff alike. Yeah, so we had a community meeting and we had a really, really great turnout. What came out of that meeting was that residents are excited that we're there, but they're also afraid at the same time. Some of them have built their homes there, and just having to go into some of the homes, they are really, really beautiful. They stated that they're good people, but people on the outside are coming in, giving Brandon Hills a bad name, if you will. So what they would like to do, I think we came up with some committees. They want engagement. And so what we decided to do was create a couple of committees: beautification committee, public safety committee, and then a residence committee. And while we talked about a lot, those three committees, they got excited about it because now they, the residents, get an opportunity to participate in what happens in Brandon Hills next, right? So when we talk about beautification, yes, we have Envision and we have Keep DeKalb Beautiful, who have been on site and cleaning up the property. Well, now they want to take ownership of that. So the next time we do a beautification, they're going to select different residents who will now own that process. So them being more engaged, us having meetings once a month to give them up to date statuses on what we're doing, what they would like to see done. It's going to be really great, and they're excited about it. One thing that came out of that is that Mama Wheels has stopped delivering in that area because of safety concerns, and because we made some phone calls, they have now resumed delivery to those that are disabled in that community. So it's really important that we are there to help them. Some of them don't speak English. They do have interpreters, but it's important that we're there to be a liaison between them, the county, and any other entities that they need assistance with. So yeah, next steps. They're concerned about the trash, obviously. Definitely concerned about that. They're concerned about the abandoned cars. They're concerned about, some of them not having IDs. And so we have Congressman Hank Johnson's office that is working with them on getting their documentation in line. So overall, I think we're in a good place, Commissioner Terry. Thank you for your voice. And we look forward to continuing the work. But those are the things that came out of our committee. It's their home. They don't want to go anywhere. They can't afford to go anywhere. They want to rebuild, can't afford to relocate. So if we can all work together to come up with a really, really good solution, they would really, really be happy. I think we got some more feedback about code violations. Families doing work on the buildings, not knowing which direction to go when they get violations. So communication, us again, being a liaison to help them finagle through a system that in their mind is complicated. Did I cover everything, Commissioner Terry?
Yeah. Let me put a little finer point on some of the things you brought up. That was a great recap. And I think the encouraging news, I think, is that the residents have not lost hope. Yes. They are really kind of beaten down, and certainly the last triple homicide was really I think very damaging to a lot of the residents' sort of feelings. And we went to the building where the triple homicide happened, and we saw where and talked with the older woman who had bullets go into her unit, and while that aspects of that hallway had a lot of issues with it, her unit was very nice and it was well put together, and she had beautiful photos of her family and a beautiful sort of ottoman and cabinet space that a bullet just sort of, and several bullets through came through. What I thought was interesting about that conversation is, as we were talking with her, she sort of revealed that she's having mobility issues and she can't get to the grocery store. And so she asked us, is there a way to help get her to the grocery store? And so we've connected well, actually, I think Erica, you were helping her apply for MARTA mobility. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting that, once we kind of like just took a few moments, took a few beats to talk with the residents and just spend a little time there, we sort of found that there's some real, just small little barriers
Yes.
that are huge barriers to some of the residents for getting to self-sufficiency, to kind of getting things turned around. We talked to, as you mentioned, one individual had her purse stolen about a month ago. She was just walking to the grocery store and she was robbed on Memorial College Avenue, and she quite frankly didn't know how to replace all of her documents. And thank goodness for Eric Hubbard and Congressman Hank Johnson's office. They're like, we can absolutely help her get her Social Security card and all those documents that she needs to even apply for the assistance that she qualifies for. And so I think one of the things that we discussed with the group and with some of the steering committee members is this idea of having a more of a public benefits navigator presence. Not just at Brandon Hills, but in DeKalb County in general, but recognizing that Brandon Hills has, I think, an opportunity for navigators to really make a big impact, because a lot of the residents we're finding who live here qualify for a lot of programs because they're already below the poverty level. A lot of seniors, a lot of children, a lot of individuals with mental health diagnoses, disabilities. They're some of the most vulnerable people in DeKalb County. And, and I'm grateful for, the commission and the administration and Mr. Williams on, offering the, suggesting the opportunity with these new emergency rental assistance funds, that there might be a more sort of targeted community approach, sort of outside the eviction court, because we do know that some residents are facing eviction. They might be coming up soon in the magistrate court. Others might have to relocate because of a demolition of a building that might be sort of in process. And so the thing I think to keep in mind is there's so many moving pieces here, and there really isn't just like one step and then it's sort of multiple channels, multiple steps. Sometimes they might converge, sometimes they might just be on their own track independently. But it really is all geared around this idea of rejuvenating Brandon Hills. And I was really encouraged. I want to share with everyone the fact that we had several residents, Miss Pat, she's been there for like 40 years. And I know it's been 40 years because she said she moved there in 1983. So that's when I was born. And she said that she used to live in an apartment near Brandon Hills. And she remembers when she got the opportunity to buy a unit in Brandon Hills, she thought that she'd gone to heaven. She had a tennis court, a pool, a clubhouse. They had a little security gate. It was sort of seen as like the exclusive, nice community in Clarkston. And just because of a whole host of issues over the last 25 years, it really, it fell apart. And so I have asked, and hopefully Miss Pat or others can find photos of when Brandon Hills was sort of at its heyday, just as a reminder that that it's not about this area, or it's nothing wrong about the people that live in the 30021 zip code, right? We know that there's issues like this in all corners of DeKalb County, and that just because they live in an area that might have a little bit higher crime or higher poverty level, doesn't mean they don't deserve nice things and nice and decent living standards, and a community they can be proud of. And I think that's what I heard over and over again, is that they are residents. They're not necessarily proud of where they live, but it's where they live, and they're committed to making things better. So everyone's very excited. They're very motivated by the fact that, just that we're talking about the issues, that we're giving them attention. I know that we're working with the law department right now to establish the structure to create the public benefits navigator positions. As everyone knows, the American Rescue Plan explicitly has a section in there that government entities, institutions can hire public benefits navigators for the very reasons that we talked about: MARTA mobility, identification, applying for rental assistance. the other, what was the other piece that we saw? Oh yeah, so I mean, and just in terms of this concept of a navigator, everyone remembers when Obamacare was passed and we had to get millions of new people to sign up for health insurance who never had health insurance before. And it was the Obama navigators that made a tremendous impact in getting millions of people who had never been in the insurance system into an insurance system, helping them fill out that paperwork, helping them assemble all of the documents. And I think that's something that I've seen over the years in terms of how we deliver government services, is that some people do get caught up on the paperwork or just not knowing exactly where to go, or sometimes just there's a delay. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And so there's months and months go by. You know, I just can't believe that the woman that we spoke with had gone almost a month and a half with no identification. Yeah. And she was sort of struggling with, you know, what do I do? And so it tells me that, you know, the will is there, but sometimes people can get really beat down by the system or by some of these barriers that to us, they might seem easy and, you know, we have experience with it, but if you don't know what you don't know, it can be really scary and really, you know, insurmountable in their minds. So, Eric, I know we talked about, within the work groups, the two things, the reason why the beautification work group and why the public and sort of the safety work group came up is because the residents really sort of honed in, I think, on the two things that are kind of the emergency need. And that is that there are a tremendous amount of mattresses, tires, you know, in essence, a landfill in the back parking lot of the complex. And the residents have expressed that they have no way to stop the dumping. Yes. And you know, when they don't know, and there was, you know, assertions that maybe they didn't know if they needed to call someone. Is that code in compliance? Is it 911? And so I think one of the things that, and Mr. Williams, I'm looking for you to respond here. You know, I think acknowledging that the county through Keep DeKalb Beautiful has cleaned up aspects of the, you know, the debris, whether they're a building that burnt out or other dump sites in the past, but recognizing that once it's been cleaned up, you know, 6 months later, folks have dumped more, you know, trash and landfill debris there. And so there is sort of a 1-2 step we're looking for of trying to create a little bit more of a security envelope in the public realm to manage the illegal dumping and potentially other illicit activity that we might need investigatory, you know, sort of documentation on. And then in the same step, coordinating a cleanup of all of the trash and the tires and the mattresses. And I know those are kind of things that are separate, but if we can do them together, I know the residents would feel really happy because they would feel a little bit more, I think, have a little more peace of mind that at least if there's someone dumping or if there's potentially someone that's coming in Brandon Hills to cause problems, that there would be some sort of security system or surveillance system that would help at least respond if a crime was committed. So, you know, Mr. Williams, I know that we want to, you know, kind of assemble all the departments to talk about this issue. But you know, just for sake of time here, is that something that, you know, between kind of the commissioner's offices as well as the departments and some of the steering committee members, can we kind of come together and strategize on what's the best, you know, sort of treatment, public surveillance, as well as the sanitation issues, number one, and then number two, identifying resources that we can bring to bear to, you know, in essence, fund these additional measures.
So certainly, Commissioner Terry, and first of all, thank you for continuing this conversation. And Erica, thank you for the work that you and your team are doing.
Absolutely.
It's an important issue. What I would love to be able to do is just take, this discussion and the input that has been gained over the last, couple of months in these discussions. And Commissioner Terry, I would like the opportunity, if we're going to have the conversations through ERPS, maybe come together with some of our key personnel, police, fire force, code enforcement, human services, community development, and myself, and just us kind of talk through and get an understanding of what we are dealing with, because there are a host of issues that
Yes.
we may be able to begin to unravel locally, but there are issues that I heard myself that dealt with mail delivery and other things that are, beyond our sphere of influence, but we can also assist with phone calls. So I would like at this point just to kind of take the feedback, Erica, if you wouldn't mind just sending the list of issues that you've raised.
Absolutely.
And what we would do, Commissioner Terry, and we'll get on your calendar, just kind of talk through with our in-house team, and come to an understanding, and then we'll, take it one step at a time. But I think just getting a good understanding of what we're dealing with, so that ideally this time it's not another cleanup.
Right.
6 months later, we need another cleanup.
Right.
Because that has been, generally speaking, the experience over the past 8 years or so that I'm familiar with Brandon Hills. I think we have opportunities, as we discussed in the committee of the whole, potential opportunities to really leverage different funds, and maybe make a longer term impact. And I think I would like us to have an in-house discussion on what that may look like.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. And we just have a few minutes left. Commissioner Davis Johnson has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to say, and I thank you, Erica, for your presentation, and thank you, Commissioner Terry, for your presentation as well. But I'd like to say that when you look at Brandon Hills, I mean, they are not unique. I mean, there's many other, especially in my district and Larry's district, that has similar problems. So when you start looking at spending money on one, you have to, and then, I mean, what would be, I'd like to see what would be our role in all of this. And because there are issues in, I know, the 3rd and 5th district that are similar to Brandon Hills, and we work with those issues constantly, So I would just like to say to Mr. COO, when you're looking at resolutions for Brandon Hill, please look at resolutions for similar situated housing within other districts as well.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Davis Johnson, you're familiar with, we've had for years the multifamily task force. Right.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Brandon Hills is not unique. We wish that it were. But as we talk about any one of these, I think there's going to be solutions, as we devise solutions, hopefully that they will be replicable throughout the county.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And yes, I can think of Whitehall Forest in District 6 and District 3. So that's one me and Larry have been working on for the last year. And oh man, there's a whole other host of issues going on there. But yeah, absolutely. I'm really hoping that Mr. Williams, through this just exercise with Brandon Hills, that we can kind of hone in a little bit on some, best practices or just some systems changes that kind of move them towards, whether they're redevelopment, rejuvenation, more public realm. I'm trying to keep all the options on the table, and I've asked the law department to look a little bit closer about what the eminent domain sort of next steps are when you go a little bit further and condemn, not just to take a building down, but to actually acquire the actual parcel and the ownership rights. So I think all options are on the table. I completely agree. I mean, the way I see this is that if we're going to see economic development, as well as, crime rates go down in certain areas where we've seen some of those hotspots, these properties, tackling them and improving them, I think improves the entire area's prospects for livability, as well as reducing the possibility of crime. So absolutely, I think I'm hoping that we can, certainly if there's other, Brandon Hill and Whitehall Forest are the ones that have kind of come to the top because there's sort of emergency issues happening right now, but certainly other commissioners, if there's other properties that you think should be considered, let's take them all in. I mean, I think this is something that the ERPS committee, I think, is interested in. And so we'll continue that conversation. All right, we're already 1 minute late. So sorry, Commissioner Cochran-Johnson. Let's go ahead. If there's no other comments, we'll open the floor for an adjournment.
Move adjournment.
All right, I think that was the second.
Yeah, I second it.
Second. All right, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all very much.